Now, of course, the slab roller is the easier way to go, but not everybody owns that piece of equipment. So I'm going to show you how to make a nice slab of clay with just a rolling pin in your table. Now, my table here is covered in canvas. That way, when I'm throwing the clay, it's not sticking. It gives it a nice surface to absorb a little bit of the water as well if you're letting your clay set up. So in order to make a nice big slab with the rolling pin, I'm going to stretch this out a little bit more. I probably want to get it to be, in the end, a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch thick. That's a good thickness to be sturdy enough to use and thick enough to hold up. So I've got it a little bit thicker than that right now. I'm going to take my really big rolling pin here, and I'm just going to kind of stretch that out a little bit more. And make it nice and smooth. Having a really wide rolling pin helps because then you're more likely to have the same thickness all the way across. If you have a really thin rolling pin, you're going to have to do it in a couple of different places. You might end up with ridges in the middle. So once you've got it rolled out to about the thickness that you want to take some kind of drywall knife and smooth the surface. Helps to clean off your knife first. And you're just compressing the clay and smoothing the surface. You did get some compression with that rolling pin, but this gives you just a little bit more. And if you have a few ridges, that's okay because we're probably going to end up wiping those out in the next steps of the process. So now we have a nice slab of clay. So I've set my slab roller on both sides to just in between 1/4 of an inch and 3/8 of an inch. I really like that thickness for working with. It comes with 2 pieces of canvas, and you take your blank of clay and you set it in between your 2 pieces of canvas. It's really important to have the thickness not be more than about 3 or 4 times thicker than what your eventual slab's going to be. Otherwise, it's really hard to push through the rollers. And it helps also to pat the edge. Give it a nice taper so that it can get started through the wheel really easily. Now you put your other piece of canvas on top. You want to have a little bit of space here so you can get it started through the wheel. If you don't do that, you're going to probably end up pulling your clay down into the wheel mechanism, and you don't want to do that. So we've got that taper right up against those 2 wheels, and I use this large wheel to start rolling. You can go back and forth a little bit to get it really going, and you can see this lump of clay is expanding. Now I've made it all the way through. I'll pull it back. And I have this table right on the edge where I slide my slab. And now we've got a nice, flat, even slab ready to work with. Now, slab building is not just for small, flat pieces. You can actually construct larger items like vases, boxes, all kinds of things out of slabs. Here I'm going to demonstrate how to do a square vase made out of slabs. The first thing you need to do is get a piece of cardboard to make a template for your walls. I've decided that I want a tall, thin, rectangular base, and so I've made a tall, thin, rectangular form. And then you're going to lay that form directly on your prepared slab and cut around it with a needle tool. I've already done this. I've got these slabs cut and prepared. You also want to take this same form and make your base. And what you can do to do that is just cut one of the forms and then lay this against the corner to cut it again to get your square. So that's what this is here. You let these set up. These are actually leather hard. You don't want them to be flimsy, or when you try to construct them, they're going to fall down. So we're ready now to construct the base. So now we've got our prepared pieces and we're ready to construct these together. I want the smooth side to be the outside of my vase. So first I'm going to take my scorer and I'm going to score together The first one's going to go like this. So I'm going to score on this edge. And my prepared slip that I showed you earlier, this is a great time to use that. It's almost like glue. Just put a little bit of that on there and score it right in. Now you want to do this edge of this piece. Score it across. Add a little bit of your slip. And score that in. Now you're going to take this piece, butt it up against this piece, and press firmly. Now you see how this is standing up on its own. That's why I was saying that you need to have relatively firm pieces of clay to do this. Smooth out that interior corner, and now you're ready to add your other walls. Now we're ready to attach the base of the vase, and it fits really nicely. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same scoring and slipping that we did on the sides on all 4 bottom pieces. And then around the edge of the square base. And now we're going to press this onto the bottom. And gently tilt this base that is stuck to the board. There we go. And gently tilt it up. And now we can smooth out all the edges and do the finish work. So now we're going to take this slab that has a little bit of added texture and make a cylindrical vase. This right here is a piece of cardboard that was a paper tube for photographic paper. You can find these in a number of places. You can go buy a concrete tube form. There's a lot of ways to get a cylindrical form. But first you want to cut the base. You want it to be a little bit bigger than the tube itself. You've got your circle for your base. Then you want to give yourself a nice, smooth top surface to your vase. So that'll be the top of our vase. And you want to give yourself a good straight cut for the bottom as well. Well, I guess I'm going to move it up. So there we go. We've got a nice straight piece cut, and we're going to make a cylindrical vase out of that. So now we're ready to make our vase. The first thing we want to do is we want this textured side to be the outside. So we're going to flip this slab right on over. Now we're going to take our form. We want one of these straight sides to line up with the bottom. And you want to just press your clay onto the form, keeping that line lined up with the bottom. And once you get to the end of the slab, give yourself just a little bit of extra clay so that they overlap a tiny bit, and cut off the excess. Now that you've cut off the excess, you want to score the interior edge of that part and the interior edge of that part. This clay is still pretty wet, so we don't need a ton of slip or a whole lot of scoring. That should suffice. Roll it back together. Give it a little bit of pressure. And now we've got the cylinder part of our vase formed.